ATMs spitting out money, random bank accounts quadrupling their balances overnight, and massive amounts of money appearing out of nowhere. This may seem straight out of a Hollywood movie. However, this is closer to reality than you might think.
Moving on, today a Russian security company reported that it discovered one of the biggest bank robberies ever. No guns involved, hackers did it, breaking into more than 100 banks in 30 countries and making off with a total of as much as $1 billion.
Since 2014, possibly even earlier, a mysterious and unknown group of hackers had infiltrated the systems of dozens of financial institutions, stealing over $1 billion in the process. They thought they were invincible until the anti-cybercrime company Kaspersky Labs discovered what was going on. Kaspersky Labs went on to team up with intelligence agencies from all over the world in an attempt to put an end to the cybercriminals known only as the Carbonic Group. But before we start, please hit the subscribe button to never miss out on any of our future videos. To understand how the hackers managed to infiltrate banks and crack ATMs all around the world, we have to go back a few years. In 2010, the computer security expert Barnaby Jack attended a black hat hacking conference and made a presentation that would forever change the life of both cybercriminals and cybersecurity experts. He presented a system of hacks which he would name jackpotting. Jackpotting was the dream of every cybercriminal and the nightmare of every cybersecurity expert. It was the process of hacking an ATM and making it spew out cash on the spot. To make things even better, he showed the audience two different ways to hack an ATM. In the first option, the attackers had to physically connect the cash machine to a device such as a computer or a tablet. Once it was connected, they activated malware specifically designed to gain control of the cash machine. If the malware worked as expected, the hackers only had to press a few buttons on their device to make the ATM spit out as much cash as they wanted. You may ask yourself how this is done, and surprisingly enough, it's a lot easier than most people think. An ATM is usually comprised of two different parts, the lower part and the upper part. The lower half of the ATM is heavily protected and contains the cash deposits of the cash machine. You could say that this part is the safety vault of the ATM. The second half of the cash machine is the top box, which contains several elements such as a printer for the receipts, a camera, a speaker, the display, and the most important part, a computer that controls the ATM. This computer is directly connected to the cash dispenser, and by hacking into this computer, criminals could gain total control over the ATM. The thing to keep in mind is that unlike the cash dispenser, this computer is not as secured, even though it is just as important. This was a major flaw because hackers could easily break the exterior or even buy general access keys for these ATMs on the dark web. Once the top box was opened, it was over. The hackers only had to connect their device to the computer, activate their malware, and collect all of the money. Even though this was already spectacular, it was the second option that left the audience speechless. Barnaby explained that by hacking into the internal cash system of a bank, attackers would be able to activate any ATM of the bank and make it spew out as much money as they wanted without ever leaving even a single fingerprint on a machine. The cherry on top of all of this was that in both cases, no personal information was required. No credit or debit cards had to be inserted into the machine, nor were account details needed. Both options were completely anonymous ways to hack the ATM. All of this may seem pretty cool, but is it even worth it to go through the hassle of hacking an ATM? And the answer is yes. There is a reason as to why people have exploded, demolished, or straight up stolen entire ATMs using excavators, like what the famous Brisbane robbers did in 2010.
Police are investigating a bizarre ATM robbery at a suburban shopping centre north of Brisbane overnight. Police say thieves stole this excavator from a construction site at North Lakes and drove it through bollards and up an embankment before smashing a Westpac ATM. The vibrations from the excavator set off an alarm at a nearby bottle shop, and police were called at 2:30 this morning.
The reason is that some ATMs contain somewhere from $200,000 to $450,000, and even though these are rare, most contain around $60,000, which is still a considerable amount of money. All of this makes ATMs very attractive to thieves and hacking enthusiasts such as Barnaby Jack. After his incredible presentation, Barnaby had become a legend in hacking circles. Hackers and cybersecurity experts all around the world were talking about his presentation. However, there was one group of people who saw his presentation as a serious problem. Banks and other financial institutions were now at risk of getting robbed at any time and at any of their cash machines. They had a big, and we mean a very big, problem. If knowledge about jackpotting were to spread, hackers all around the world would try to steal money and, in the worst scenario, even improve upon Barnaby's methods. And this is exactly what happened.
Y mire, una nueva razón para preocuparse. Hace unos días se desató la preocupación en algunos bancos de nuestro país porque un virus permitía a los ciberdelincuentes vaciar los cajeros automáticos. Aunque la amenaza ya fue controlada, la alerta continúa ante el temor de un nuevo ataque.
In 2013, only 3 years after the legendary jackpotting presentation, the first large-scale attack was reported in Mexico. In a truly massive operation, a group of hackers compromised over 450 ATMs from 4 of the largest Mexican banks and stole over $40 million in a matter of days. The banks noticed that their ATMs were almost empty only a few hours after they had been filled and thought that the delivery drivers were stealing money from them. But this wasn't the case. Upon further investigation, they found out that all of the ATMs with the abnormal cash movements had been infected with software named Ploutus Made in Latin America XD. Ploutus was the first of its kind. In basic terms, it was a malware designed to infiltrate and gain total control over ATM computers that were running on software made by Cal. Because Cal is one of the leading companies when it comes to ATM software, the hackers could now hack into a variety of ATMs from different banks. Just as Barnaby Jack had shown a few years before, they would open the ATMs with general access keys, connect a device to activate the malware, and then use a keyboard to control and order the machine to release as much money as they wanted. This would be the first time that anyone successfully jackpotted ATMs for a large sum of money. And, as you might think, the news spread like wildfire throughout hacker circles, starting what many called the Ploutus wave. Cybercriminals all around the world began to use the Ploutus malware to steal money from ATMs, with banks allegedly losing around $2 to $3 billion during the next 12 months. To make things even worse, people were selling the malware and instructions on how to use it through the dark web, which meant that basically anybody could get their hands on it. Now, you might ask yourself, why didn't the banks just update their cash machines? The answer to this is that they did, and a lot. But security updates were only a temporary solution. After every security update, banks would be safe for a few months until a new and better version of the Ploutus malware was created and sold on the dark web. What made it even easier for hackers was that most ATMs were often very old and running on Windows XP, which was extremely outdated, and support for this system ended in 2014, at a time when cash machines were being targeted almost every day. The biggest victims of the Ploutus malware were Mexico, Brazil, and other South American countries. As word about Ploutus spread, it made its way to Europe and Asia, and Ploutus D, an updated version of the malware, even appeared in the USA in 2018. Ploutus was truly a nightmare for banks all around the globe. However, the worst was still to come. As the banks secured their systems to be safe from the Ploutus malware, another, much more complex malware appeared in 2014. That year, the anti-cybercrime company Kaspersky Labs discovered that a mysterious group of hackers had created a new malware. With this new software, they infiltrated the internal systems of dozens of banks in Europe, Russia, and even China. The banks contacted Kaspersky Labs because an unknown group of people had been stealing money from their ATMs without even touching them. Upon investigation, Kaspersky Labs found that this had been going on for much longer. In this case, the hackers had been deleting security footage and transaction details for almost half a year and stole millions of dollars without anyone noticing. But this time it wasn't just a Ploutus, Tupkin, or a debit card hack. This was something new, something nobody had ever seen. It was a hack so sophisticated that the experts at Kaspersky Labs thought it might be part of a military operation against the economies of certain countries. The cybersecurity experts dubbed this new malware Carbonac. It was untraceable, undetectable to conventional security systems, and so powerful that banks and intelligence agencies all over the world had to team up to stop it. Check out part 2 over here and subscribe for more awesome and interesting videos. Please let us know what you think about Ploutus and the start of jackpotting. Video narrated by Eric Peabody.